Hey. I said, excuse me, but you don't understand where I'm at. I was all around the world, on span, across the map. I've been laying low and now it's time to pop up, bitch, I'm back. Now I'ma run it up. Snooze on the kid, are you dumb or what? You better go get your numbers up. Now
Okay, remember now, we're not here to judge anybody. We want to handle this with love, right? You want to tell him how his drug abuse has hurt you, maybe hurt himself. Okay, Harold, what time did you tell him to be here?
5 o'clock, but he's always late.
No, he'll be here. In 3, 2, 1.
Is this a 5 o'clock free crack giveaway?
Well, there you go, folks. There you go. The little Tyrone Bigums for you. Anyway, so welcome one and all to the MCU'S with the Edge tonight on Wednesday, August 31st. We are going to be discussing our next film in our Infinity Saga, of course. And as we continue that journey, we have now come to the great and amazing film Black Panther. So Black Panther, of course, came out in 2018 and is unfortunately the only leading film that Chadwick Boseman got to do as Black Panther, unfortunately, because we unfortunately lost him in August of 2020 to colon cancer. But this movie is just a really great entry in the Infinity Saga. I feel it was a nice, fresh, take on a new character that we weren't really familiar with. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe anyways. If you were a big comic fan of Black Panther, sure, of course, I know you probably knew all about this amazing character, but we really hadn't seen him much. We got a little bit of taste of him in, of course, Civil War, and then finally he got his first solo outing. So, this film is so much fun. So it's just going to be a real fun to talk about. I actually had been quite a few months since I had watched it recently, so I just rewatched it. And I forgot there was a lot of great parts in this film. There's a lot of great music, a lot of just fun things, and there's a little bit of great humor throughout this whole film that just made it so enjoyable. And it was so beautifully directed by Ryan Coogler, who is actually came back to direct the second one too that we're getting in November. So it's been nice to see if he can do that again with this next Black Panther film. So. This movie starts off, we have T'Chaka telling a young T'Challa basically about the Black Panther and basically the history of Wakanda and how, all the different war tribes, fought to have main stake of the vibranium that they found. And basically that, there was eventually became a person called the Black Panther who would, basically, take care of Wakanda, protect it, and you would get these healing powers from this purple flower that they had there. And that's what would give the Black Panther's powers. And we got that cool, beginning sequence and showing all the cool, sand things creating into the different characters and stuff like that, telling the story, which was really cool. And basically, we have that little intro there. Then it goes to Oakland, 1992. And basically, that's where we get introduced to T'Chaka's brother, N'Jobu. And who is played by Sterling K. Brown, who is a really great actor, actually. He's really fun. A lot of things I've seen him in, he's been really good. I think this is probably one of his smaller roles at that current time. He actually had a few other bigger roles and other things. And he actually plays N'Jobu, his T'Chaka's brother. And basically, we go into the setting in Oakland there, and we go into the apartment. There's N'Jobu and his friend, and they're talking and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they get a knock on the door, and they're thinking, "Oh, is the beds after us or whatever? Does it look like them?" And the one friend goes, "No, it looks like two Grace Jones looking people," and which is super funny. A great say to Grace Jones. And then he opens the door, and they come in, and it's a couple Magi, and or Magi. I forget how they say it, but it's something like that. They're basically Wakandan guards. And they come in and like, "Who are you?" And he basically says, "I am such and such a prince or whatever of Wakanda." And they're okay. Then all of a sudden it goes black, and then Black Panther pops up, which is actually King T'Chaka. And they basically have a conversation that leads to basically finding out that the brother had been helping Ulysses S. Claw steal vibranium from Wakanda and selling it. And basically, it's reaffirmed by the friend who actually ends up, you find out that he is a Wakandan undercover as well. Now, my problem with that character is he looks absolutely nothing like Forrest Whitaker when he's supposed to be older. He literally grows like 5-6 inches for Forrest Whitaker, which that made absolutely no sense. Sorry, guys. That just, I don't see how that could have been the same person. He looked nothing like Forrest Whitaker. But anyways, that's supposed to be Forrest Whitaker's character later on in the film. So basically, you have the conversation. They, have that thing, and then it kind of goes, it blacks out, goes back to showing the spaceship up above the apartment building, shows the kid looking up at it, and it flies off. And that's when the Marvel credits roll. So, before we move on from that first beginning section there, what were your guys' thoughts on that beginning section? Do you think that was a really fantastic beginning to this film? Did it really draw you in to get you into the story? Do you feel they could have added more, or they didn't need as much? And just what were your overall thoughts of that beginning section of Black Panther? Starting with you, Mr. Fantastic.
Okay, well, hello everyone, and my first initial thought was I thought it was a great way to introduce Wakanda, explain Wakanda as like a children's story. I thought that was a cool take. It sort of was, to me, seemed like a hint of the tradition in Africa that you tell stories of your that's how you learn about your ancestors. It's all told by stories. So it seemed like a nice tip and thematically very accurate in that sense. So I thought that was smart. So I liked that a lot. I thought that was cool. The cut, I think it's on purpose, but the cut to Oakland was like, okay, what does this got to do with anything? It seemed really abrupt at the time when I watched it again. It could be easily by design though. Like, you're just like, what's going on? So it kind of draws you in because you don't know what's going on. So I get the idea of it, but it was a little jarring. The thing, this is a minor point, but I'll just make it now. Whenever they do flashback stuff like that, right? So it's 92, but all the cars are like 1970. Like, okay, yeah, it's supposed to look old, but really? I mean, that's not 1992 cars. I'm sorry. I lived it. I know that's not what they look like. So that always bothers me. I get, again, they're trying to be obvious and, it's subtle and all that, and no one cares that much, but it's just kind of a thing with movies. I think it's kind of lazy almost at this point to me. It's just sort of insulting, like, for people that are older. Now, again, this is more of a kids movie, really. I mean, it's geared towards fans and kids, so I get why it's not that big a deal. But I had to throw that in, just because. But otherwise, the intro. When you watch the entire movie, you go, oh yeah, okay, I get why they did what they did. It seemed a little jarring. That was my initial reaction.
Thank you. And just everyone out there, this is the first time I believe Mr. Fantastic has been on our podcast. Want to welcome you. Great to have you on here. And thank you for that contribution so far already.
Yeah, thanks. Great being here. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no problem. All right, Loki's mom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the whole sequence, the way they did it, the opening, I think this all happened before the credit, right? Before the Marvel thing pops up. Correct. So you've got the first scene where it's Papa, tell me about my ancestors, or tell me about Wakanda, and then you see the illustrated using that it's like sand, and it kind of puts you in mind of those graphite magnet things, desk tchotchkes, where you can pull it up and make little forms and whatnot with it. But it kind of puts you in mind of that. And it's this rolling, grainy sand, and it's grayish. And then we find out, we just kind of take it for granted in the beginning. But I think we find out a little bit later that actually what we might be seeing is what T'Challa as a child is seeing. He's seeing this graphite illustration being brought to life in the sands of this, which I'm assuming is ground up vibranium. So I jumped ahead a little bit there, but then it does go into that what Mr. Fantastic talks about, that hard jump cut right to Oakland. Well, when it says boom, first thing you see is Oakland, California, 1992. Well, Oakland, California is the home of the Black Panther Party that formed up in the 1970s. So I think that's sort of, they're trying to put that 1970s reference, that urban Oakland, the whole, everything that's going on in, post civil rights era, into the 70s when things are starting to grind down to a halt and things aren't really going forward as people would like for it to go forward and whatnot. So it's sort of out of place in 1992. So I agree. I guess they had to do that in order to make the ages fit for the characters. And by the way, Forrest Whitaker was already a grown man and had done several movies by 1992. So they could have just used him up a little bit and put with that Marvel magic, and he could have played the part. But I don't know why they did it that way. But yeah, that was sort of obvious that it was, that was not Forrest Whitaker as a kid, what he would have looked like as a kid. But anyway, putting both scenes together, and then of course we find out that this is King T'Chaka, whom we had met a little bit earlier in I think Age of Ultron, and
Civil War.
Finding out. I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, Civil
War.
Civil War. I'm sorry, Civil War. You're right. I tend to, for some reason, I keep getting those two movies mixed up. But Civil War, and we get a little bit more of his background and what they are, and the connection to Wakanda. And that's, of course, these are the two pivotal scenes that are, or at least this scene in particular, is what's going to affect the plot further down the road. So it was a really good setup for it. And so far, I don't have a lot bad to say about it, but I'll agree. I think some of the little anachronisms were kind of obvious, but who cares? Those are minor details.
Yeah, let me jump in on the Forrest Whitaker not looking like his younger self thing. Because I thought the same thing, and the only thing I could think of was they both have their eye offset look, just a little bit. Like they both kind of had it. Forrest is a lot more pronounced.
Yeah.
So I thought, is that the reason they picked this guy? Okay, I guess, sure. But that's the only thing I could come up with as far as a connection. So anyway. Whatever.
He had an adult growth spurt.
Right.
Because you can tell
he did some good eating while he was in Wakanda.
There you go.
Yeah, apparently, like he was like in his mid-20s or almost the early 30s, and all of a sudden, woo, he's shot up by people. Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
He wasn't playing
I don't know if
basketball
people really
anymore.
paid attention to that, but
And Forrest did tend to hunch a lot in his shots. I don't know if you noticed that, but he did kind of hunch. Yep. So I don't know if that was on purpose because of that. They noticed it and they were like, we need you to look shorter.
Yeah, he's like what, 6'2", 6'1"?
Yeah, he's a tall guy. Yeah.
6'3" actually.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
Anyways,
thank you, Loki Spot. Great. Jeopardy, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I mean, I think that Kevin and Renee, and then even Cyber, as you flushed out the scene, basically pointed out like the real, I guess, highlights of it in terms of what stands out for me, I guess, as a fan. I don't think it was a bad introduction or like a bad intro, a bad segue into the film. It was a necessary aspect of the film. It made sense overall once you take it into the film overall. By the end, I thought it was an interesting setup, an interesting premise. To establish to some extent, I guess, the internal premise or angst of Eric Killmonger, right, and what fuels him to some extent. you know, and also at the same time, it flushes out the sort of Wakanda royalty, you know, kingdom type, you know, concept right from jump, where you've got, you know, basically like a couple of gangbangers and shit, and all of a sudden, you know, dude's like pulling his lip down and proving like, you know, that he's Wakandan with his whole tattoo deal and whatnot and everything, bowing to the king and whatnot, to T'Chaka. And I love that shift, like right there, where I love like the impact and the presence of King T'Chaka, you know, with the Durbalage, sort of like illuminating him. And I love the Durbalage in general. I just love their impact on scene, and like I love their presence. I think that they look great visually. They're silent, you know, but deadly. And hey, they're great. You know, they're awesome looking. They're awesome in battle.
Very much so. Yeah. Dora Majai is what they're called. Dora Majai.
Yeah.
Yes,
There you go. Right.
All right. Awesome. So to kind of, before we really get into the meat of it, let's go ahead and play those trailers to give everyone a refresher of this fantastic film. And if you have those ready, Sir Jeff, please.
I do. Oh, and let's not forget, we're also going to get the Dora Milaje Disney Plus series at some point eventually, hopefully.
Cool.
Tell me something. What do you know about Wakanda? It's a third world country. Textiles, shepherds, cool outfits, all a front. Explorers have searched for it. Called it El Dorado. They looked for it in South America. But it was in Africa the whole time. I'm the only one who's seen it and made it out alive. I can see you.
The world is changing. Soon, there will only be the conquered and the conquerors.
Step into the spotlight.
You are a good man.
Step into the spotlight.
With a good heart. And it's hard for a good man to be a king.
No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry.
Uh-oh.
And then we lost. And then we lost Jeff.
Oh, well.
Okay.
We got the trailer at least. That's good.
All right, so that was a fantastic trailer. That, like I said, once again, I can't get over how awesome the music is in this film. Absolutely love the music for this film, and that trailer really showed how awesome it is. Especially, I really enjoyed the melody they chose for whenever Killmonger was in the room. I really enjoyed that music. It sounded just really perfect for his character, and I felt the energy from that, and I think they did a really good job there. But overall, the music for this film, I think, is just really amazing. The soundtrack was really fantastic. All right, so as we move on, so after the Oakland section of the film, we, like I said, the credits roll, we get the Marvel logo and all that kind of good stuff, and then we come to present day. Now, from my understanding, this is supposed to be a week after T'Chaka's death. So the death we saw in Civil War of King T'Chaka this was only supposed to be a week later that this portion of Black Panther is supposed to be going on. So we all of a sudden get to see T'Challa himself inside one of the planes, along with Okoye, and yeah, Coco, yeah, Okoye, and in the ship together, traveling somewhere, and we end up finding out that they're looking for his ex-lover Nikita. And so they're flying the plane, and she's like, "Oh, I'll come out and help you." And he's like, "No, I don't need your help. I can take care of these mercenaries myself." He drops out of the plane and goes down, and he takes on these mercenaries, which we end up finding out that Nikita was undercover and trying to stop this smuggling ring and break this up and save the day. And so Black Panther himself went down there because he wanted to basically let her know that, unfortunately my father has died. I'd like you to come to the new king ceremony. And eventually at one point, Okoye does come down and helps fight a couple of the mercenaries and has a kind of funny moment, which was really funny. She's like, "You lost focus." And that was really fun and nice little quip there. And we get this really great action sequence too, him fighting and, fighting these mercenaries stuff. We see him use the powers and stuff a little bit with the suit. Get to see that prior to him getting the new suit. And you just get this kind of nice little action sequence to really start the film out, which was really enjoyable. And so after they basically take care of the guys and he tells Nikita what's up, they go back up in the ship and they travel to Wakanda. So once they get to Wakanda, they come out, and there we get our first introduction to, of course, Ramonda, the Queen, played by Angela Bassett. And then we also get to see Shuri for the first time. And Shuri and Ramonda are there waiting, and T'Challa and Nikita and Okoye are coming out of the ship and walking towards them. And they kind of have some funny, playful banter and have this little conversation and stuff like that. Eventually with Shuri walking off to do something. And he's talking to his mother a little bit more, and it's getting time ready for that. And then that's when it pans to the actual king ceremony, which basically it goes along with their practices of basically making the next person king. And so we get this elaborate set, which was really amazing. I thought how beautifully they made it look. It really looked like an African setting, and just like everything they did with the water and the waterfall and everything about it was really cool looking. And so everyone's pretty much there, and there's other people from different tribes that are in Wakanda there for this king ceremony. And of course, at this time is when T'Challa himself has to drink this herb of some sort that basically takes away the power of the Black Panther to fight whoever decides to fight him for the throne. And so at that point is when we get our first introduction of M'Baku, who is played by Winston Duke, who is really awesome as M'Baku. I really enjoy him as the character. I thought he did a really fantastic job. And overall, I thought he just brought a real great characterization to the character. And so we get our introduction to him, and he says, I'm abdicating to try to become the next king. He's like, okay. So T'Challa accepts, and they have their duel. And so we get this really cool duel that happens right there in the water thing, and we get to see them fight and stuff like that. And basically, at the end, of course, T'Challa wins and subdues, M'Baku. And they're all happy. He gets the thing puts on him to say he's king, and basically we move on from there. So before we move on from that, let's talk a little bit about this whole section of the film. So we have this interesting little fight sequence. We got another fight sequence along with, T'Challa getting crowned king. What is everyone's thoughts on this section of the film? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Was there anything about it that you didn't like? What were just your thoughts on that whole sequence? Was there anything maybe you noticed that maybe you like to share with class, that somebody might have not seen, in some time or whatever, but, just, basically your thoughts on this sequence and how it fits into the film. Let's start with you, Loki's mom.
Yeah, it was very, very entertaining. I mean, it was informative. I mean, it's a lot of exposition going on, which there's a lot, like you say, this is, new, really new to Marvel, to the MCU as far as that goes. These characters and this whole Wakanda, this kingdom, so they really have to spend time setting it up. And like I say, but in the first part, the cold opening, it was part of that, and then we get in more deeper into it. I did, like you say, I agree. I think it's just beautiful, beautiful art direction. They've taken, the idealized version of Africa, the beautiful, like what we saw, those sweeping plains, like that movie Out of Africa with back in the day, about 20, 30 years ago, that was just loaded up with just eye candy and scenery and stuff like that. So that it really just you spend a lot of time taking that in too, and that's part of the entertainment. I did like it when it got to sort of delineating the different tribes that do make up the Wakanda Empire or Wakanda Kingdom, and then you have these, they have the border tribe, and then it's all very ritualized, and everybody, and it's that nobody has problems with how things are done and who's going to be the king. Yeah, there are challenges, but it's kind of at that point kind of ritualized. But then here comes this tribe out of the mountains, these
Jabari.
The Jabari tribe, yeah, and they've been this all these 5 tribes that had it so great living in Wakanda. But here we have been living on the periphery, just kind of getting the crumbs of it, living up here in the mountains, and we're the hillbillies. So he comes down and challenges it, but it's an honorable duel. He when T'Challa gets the best of him, even though he's a really good fighter, he yields. So he shows that he is, even though he's been treated as an outsider, and he feels like an outsider, he still has a love for Wakanda and a respect for Wakanda and the customs. So yeah, I thought that was well played, and really just sets up, and there again, it's setting up again for what's going to come later in the narrative. So yeah, I don't have a lot to really. I just can't think of anything that I would object to about it. Yeah, I think I'm surprising. I will say this: I was kind of had forgotten it since the first time I thought. I was surprised how political this particular movie is. More so than I think some of the. I think they've always been more of an allusion to politics and whatnot, or what's going on. They kind of directly address some things, like talking about oppression among African Americans living outside of Africa, or inside of Africa, or outside of Africa. And so I think that was just like very direct and kind of brave of them for them to do, and I think they handled it well.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Mr. Fantastic, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think so. As they go to the scene where Nikita is and they fight, partly that is get to the action as soon as you can kind of thinking, which is smart for this kind of movie, because there were a lot of people anticipating seeing Black Panther in action. And if you just started with that, it would be, for people that don't know it, right, it wouldn't work. So they certainly worked that in as quick as they could. And I have to say this, I think the way they did introduce the characters and really hone in on their idiosyncrasies, or their actual character, was really well done. With little, they didn't do heavy background, but you got the sense of how they relate to each other real fast. And I really noticed that because I recently watched some other movie, not nearly as good. It was horrible. And part of the problem was they just spent so much time trying to explain this character and how they did this and how they with the little bit of dialogue that they had, the actors did a great job of making that come to life, and the writing was good to make it quick. So you really did get to the characters, to how they interplayed really fast, and that was great. So then they could get to the fighting scene, and it didn't seem forced to me. It made sense once you kind of figure out what they were doing, and it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I think so that in of itself was good. The CGI stuff and just really, really well done, obviously. And speaking of that, the line that I think is, I don't know why it sticks out, but as they're coming into Wakanda and going through the force field, if you will, when T'Challa says, this never gets old, and it just was like, and then they show the whole Wakanda. That's a cool, the king who's lived there. He's just like, this is really cool, and it is, So that I thought that was great. It shows a person. He's a person. He's a human, but he is king. That was good too. And just the idea of Wakanda first look, the design of Wakanda, the city itself, when you see it kind of a little more up close, is not the original. In the comic books, it was very colorful and, it was very, kind of outworldly-ish. And they went more for later. They redesigned that later in the comic book series, and it was more realist. And they went with that, which for obvious reasons. So good choice, in my opinion, on that, because it works way better for a movie to not be distracting. So I thought that was great. The King ceremony, definitely it was visually very cool. If you forget how cool it was and go, wait a minute, how'd those people get up there? That's really dangerous. Why are they walking around at a waterfall and going these tiny little ledges, and they're up, 50 feet in the air? I'm not so sure about that one. It looks cool, but logistically, wait, I wouldn't want to do that. What are you talking about? But suspension of disbelief. It's a movie, right? So it was cool. Don't get me wrong. And the fight itself, yes, or choreographed extremely well. Very believable. The only thing that struck me that was he gets the spear near the heart, and it stops him. Like it's like, oh, he's gonna die, right? And within seconds, he's just like, all right, I'm good. So it just seemed a little bit. That was a little bit much to take from a realism standpoint. Okay, I know we're watching Black Panther, I get it, but that was kind of like, they slipped up there a little bit, in my opinion. They just kind of let it go, and he's fine. well, hold on a second. He wasn't supposed to have powers. Anybody else would have been in the hospital for 4 or 5 months. So it was just a minor thing, but whatever. But overall, though, great. And I think the fight itself did show the honor in the ritual that everybody held, and how that's different than how it was done later in the movie, which we'll get to. So,
most definitely. Thank you. Jeff, your thoughts, sir?
Well, obviously, like Kevin said, the choreography with the entire fighting and the action scene was excellent. It was really well staged and whatnot. Great timing, very fluid. And of course, there's no way to realistically know. To what extent, I guess, Chadwick did his own stunts, right? I don't know, actually, to what degree he did. I'd like to think that, knowing that, how good a shape he was then, and everything and whatnot, he probably did do, some of them at least. He was in tremendous shape. He looked, considering his actual condition at that time, he looked chiseled and big. If anything, he was in peak condition. And honestly, I don't mean to go off the cuff or just, too off the beat path, but, when he runs down Infinity War with Cap and they run down, they race almost to take on, Thanos' army, and they sprint, you can almost imagine Chadwick doing that on his own, in a way. But, no, it was a great scene. It expressed the capabilities of the Black Panther with the suit and everything, what it could do. The fact that he could take gunshots, bullets would bounce off of him, it showed up to some extent his agility, his super agility, his quickness and reflexes, which I think that in the comics at least they flush out, a lot and whatnot. They get clear with him that he's very quick, he's very not just fast, he's very quick. He has very quick movements, trigger movements, great agility, stamina. Just overall, of course he has super strength, and I'd say that in general, it was a good, opening segment to display an action scene and show off what the Black Panther was capable of. And he looked great in the suit, man. Chadwick did. He looked awesome in it. He just really did. It fit him perfect. He looked natural. And Okoye, is great too. She's a really, really solid secondary piece. She really is in the Black, in this Black Panther film. I'm not sure how it will flush out in Wakanda Forever with her. I guess she's going to get her own series too now. I don't know all the details, but I guess she's going to get one, which is cool. I like her character. I do. What is it, Daniel Guerra, I think, for The Walking Dead. But no, she's great. And basically, I think that it was cool that, I guess to bounce off Renee to wrap up, it was cool that they went ahead and I guess they didn't really label or get too in detail what was going on with that gang, the kidnappers and whatnot, in Africa. But human smuggling and that kind of thing and whatnot and everything, slavery is still very, rapid there and whatnot, rampant. And at that point, I did think it was interesting that they went ahead and threw that in there right from jump, and added that in, and kept it contained to the continent, to Africa. I thought that was interesting. And at the same time, I like the tech that they showed his tech right off the bat. That he has that edge. And besides that, I mean, just a great scene. Him dropping out of that plane, outstanding.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome, all very well done, all very good. All right, so after that sequence, we cut to all of a sudden being over in the United Kingdom. And that's where we get introduced to a.k.a. Eric Stevens, a.k.a. Killmonger. And he's at a museum, and he's looking at this artifact in a case. And one of the museum people come over, this young lady, and they start having a little bit of a conversation. And he starts talking a little bit about, do you know where this actually came from and stuff like that, and starts kind of deviating the conversation. She starts to feel a little weird, as you can see. She starts kind of coughing stuff. And, basically she's like, did you know that this was actually stolen, not sold, and she's like, this isn't being sold. And she's like, no, I'm saying this was stolen from Wakanda. This is a Wakandan weapon. And basically they have a conversation, and the security guards come over, and out of nowhere, that's when Claw pops in and takes out all the guards. And the lady falls down. She's sick, and she's having some sort of anaphylactic shock or some sort from whatever she drank in her coffee that was put in there. And it kind of cuts away for a second. It shows this other gal talking at a barista place. She's like, oh, I'm going to go on break right now. And she takes off the apron and starts walking towards this van. And she gets into the van along with this other guy that are accomplices of Claw and Stevens as well. And they all end up at the museum, and basically they end up breaking the glass, and they take the weapon. And we get to see kind of Claw kind of use his new arm that he gets that makes him, Claw. And it shows him, and he vibrates the weapon, and it basically takes off all the rust off of it, and makes it you can see all of a sudden it's clear, it's clean and beautiful, and it's vibranium and stuff like that. And he's like, and they kind of have a little bit of conversation, and this is all good. They take it, they get back in the van. Killmonger pretends to be being taken out on a stretcher, and they go into basically that van, and they get up and they go away. So then after that happens, that interesting scene, then we go back, of course, to T'Challa, Okoye, Neki, and they end up traveling to South Korea. Because before they actually travel to there, we get a little scene where T'Challa goes to Shuri's workshop, and she shows him some of the different things that she's been working on, a new suit for him, basically, good things need to be upgraded, and that, just because it's good doesn't mean it can't be upgraded. And so like that, she shows him these shoes she's working on that basically turn into regular shoes. You put them on. She says, I'm calling them sneakers, which was a funny line because sneakers have been around for hundreds of years, young lady. But anyways, and because she makes fun of his sandals, like, why are you wearing those sandals? Which was really funny. And then she shows him the suit and, says, oh, these are the upgrades I've done to it. And basically when it gets hit or shot at or whatever, it basically takes the force from whatever was hit on it and it holds it in. And then once at one point, you can actually use it against your enemy and basically almost like doing like a sonic boom, basically. And that was like really cool. And she's like, oh, try it out. And so he hits it and it goes flying backwards. It's like, whoa. And seeing the new stuff that, Suri is making. And we have that kind of fun little scene there. And that's when they go to Busan in South Korea. Because basically that's, they find out that's where Claw is because they have, basically Aoki comes in and says, oh, there's this guy that, Ulysses Claus, he was caught stealing basically that artifact from that museum. And they have like a conversation where they have all those people in the little thing. It says, yeah, we'll bring him back and get justice that we haven't got justice for over these 30 years. And then that's finally when we actually go to Busan. And in Busan is when we get this amazing sequence. We get to meet Mr. Everett, the cool agent that we got to meet in Civil War, and played by the great Martin Freeman. And so they're at like this casino thing in South Korea, and there is Martin Freeman. He's playing like a table, and we see T'Challa, we see Oka, we see Nikita. They're all walking around and stuff like that. And Martin Freeman sees T'Challa, and then he goes over to him. They have a little conversation. I don't know why you're here, but I'm taking care of this. And so they have that little conversation. And then at some point, as they're going through and stuff, and they're like eyeing things like that, that's when Claw pops up. And he goes over to Everett, and they have a little conversation, like, oh, I got the money, show me the goods. And they have like a kind of funny banter between each other that was really funny. And he ends up pulling out the vibranium head from his pants. And he's like, why bother getting a briefcase? I thought I saved a few bucks. And, he has that funny kind of like thing there. He's like, oh, okay. And then it kind of goes back up to where Okoye is, and she gets marked. And so that's when all hell breaks loose, and all of a sudden there's all this fighting going on throughout the casino. And then it basically leads on to this amazing car chase. And we get this awesome car chase where Siri uses for the first time this technology that she was making to be able to drive the car without being in the actual car. And so then we have this giant great sequence that goes down the road. They're chasing after Claw. We get Black Panther back into his Black Panther suit, and he's on top of the car and going after and trying to stop the bad guys. They destroy 3 or 4 different vehicles, and we get to see all the different technology. Claw uses his arm at one point to blow the car that Nikita and Okoye are in, and we get to see them, and it gets blasted, and Okoye comes jumping out with her spear, and she jumps down and hits it into the ground and stops herself. And then funnily, all of a sudden we see Nikita kind of slowly coming down right next to her, still in the car seat, in the driver's seat, and you're kind of like, that's hilarious. And then it keeps going on. The car chase keeps going on until finally Black Panther stops Claw at one point, and he's about to basically kill him, and the other.
Oh.
He froze up.
That's okay. It's a good. It's a good
Yeah.
awkward silence.
Yeah.
It sets a nice tone.
Yeah, I mean, what he was gonna, as far as what was going on is he's gonna take him out because he killed his father, and the two others say, "Hold on, everybody's watching and filming you. The world's watching you." So he stops, and then they take him into custody. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. You're back. All right, awesome.
He's back.
It's a real life. It's a real life version of Cyberneticshark.
He had some Wakanda dust in his system or something.
Something.
Once again, all you stopped, not just me. So you guys might have not seen me, but I didn't see either any of you except for Renee's avatar. So
well, we'll quit talking about you behind your back.
I knew you were, you guys, crazy. Anyways, so we'll stop there. And so next question. So that section of the film, there's a lot going on. Lots of action once again, right into this film. Lots of funny one-liners and just some great sequences. So, once again, what are your guys' thoughts on this whole sequence of the film? How do you think it add to the film? Was there anything you would have done differently? And what exactly did you enjoy about this sequence of the film? Starting with you, Loki Spawn.
Okay, well, the when Sherry, she mentions the movie Baba, I'll ask, this is a question I'm going to ask you guys. What is the name of that movie that she is referencing?
Baba.
The movie, she says, they're there about the sandals, and she gives him the soles, the magic shoes, and
Yeah.
She says, like the movie Baba I always loved so much, or something to that effect.
Oh yeah, that went by and I didn't think about it after that.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah. You're the only one I think would have a clue, and I don't think Jeff or Cyber would. She is referencing a Disney movie that was made, I think, right around 1960. Starred Fred McMurray. It was called The Absent-Minded Professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that movie.
He invents a substance called flubber.
Yeah.
And he makes soles out of them, and he puts them in sneakers, and then the high school team wins the basketball championship or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, that is the reference to that movie.
Oh, okay, yeah, it went by me. So nice job there.
So if you ever look at the movie Absent-Minded Professor, you see they're bouncing off the flip. I think Robin Williams did a remake of it. I don't know if it did real well, but it did come out another version. But yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Okay.
So that's the joke in the movie.
Right. Yeah, even though the sneakers joke was right on the nose, it was effective. You know, it was funny. So.
But anyhow, the rest of the movie, like you say, oh my gosh, that whole casino sequence to start off with, Killmonger in the museum. I mean, that was just. I mean, okay, what's going on here? And you know, the first time you see it, of course, now we've seen it, we know what to expect. But first time you see it, okay, what's going on here? And and then he's there to steal that, and of course they're there to steal it because Claw wants it to trade with the or I don't know what's going on with it, but they're making some deal with the U.S. government and the U.S. whatever. But yeah, that's well played. And then they get into the casino and how that's set up, and such a great fight scene, just shootout and everything. Bleeds right into a great chase scene with all the technology and everything. And Shuri, and she's back home, in a virtual car, driving the car that he's on top of. I mean, you couldn't get better than that. I mean, as far as just action, just good old fashioned Hollywood. Let's have fun and with the violence and everything, and enjoy it and for what it is. And yeah, like I say, well done. I think probably one of the best sequences in Marvel. Absolutely, what you call a double sequence or whatever. Yeah, probably the best one I've seen.
Nice. And why do you think it's Flubber or the Absent-Minded Professor that they're talking about in that scene? Because everything I've seen was referencing actually Back to the Future Part 2 in that sequence. Because the sequence, how it works is because if you remember in Back to the Future Part 2, Doc Brown gives Marty those power lace shoes in when they get to the future, 2015. And so what the reference is, why she's talking about the shoes, is she was referring to the actual shoes, just like those power laces that conform to your feet, is exactly what she's talking about in that sequence.
Well, I'm going to stand by Absent-Minded Professor. Well, it'll be a date for another day.
I'll need to go back and look at that scene and watch that a couple times because it went by me and I just sort of ignored it.
It could be a reference to both. Hey, it could be a reference.
Who knows? Anyway, yeah, that might be worth another look for me because it did kind of fly by and I just was trying to keep up with all the dialogue and I let it go. Anyway. Since I'm in, should I keep going, or do you want to do something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your thoughts, please.
All right. So there was a scene about the ritual of T'Challa becoming, getting the Black Panther heart liquid back into him, and he goes and visits his ancestor, sees his father. There is that scene in there too. And I guess it was really cool. I mean, just the idea of it, and I thought it was odd that they would fully bury him. You know, like it was a little on the nose of like he's dying, seeing his ancestors, and he comes back to life. Like it's a little too much, but I get why they did it. And the sand was red like blood, and then the heart liquid being, you know, it was a little too much on the nose, but very comic book like in that sense. So I appreciated that, like in the sense of like, no, they're trying to actually create a live version of what happens in a comic book without it being cheesy, right? Which also references the driver's seat thing. That's a classic comic book thing, right? Where a car blows up and it's just a guy sitting in the driver's seat, right? So I thought that was cool. Like, yeah, I mean, it's cute, but it was definitely like comic book like, but without being stupid. So very well done on that end. I thought that was cool in that sense. Okay, so totally agree with the casino scene. Great choreography again. The car chase was one of the best ever. It's so good. Let me go back though. The casino, there's a weird cut where I think it's Everett is saying the line is not here to make a deal, and he turns and it cuts. And it moves on. And it was, wait, what? There was something there, and they cut it. You could tell it was an edit. And I thought, I don't usually see that in a movie of this magnitude. They don't make that kind of quote mistake. And I don't think it was leading to anything. It just was a weird cut. Anyway, sorry, very small. Doesn't take away from how cool it was. It was just something I noticed. The one again, it's kind of a realism thing. Again, I guess I'm hung up on that, but. When the car blows up with the two in there, and she grabs her spear and is coming down. Well, no, she's gonna stop. This is before that. She's stopping a car. She takes out her spear and throws it through the windshield in front of the car. It sticks in the ground hard enough and strong enough to stop the car. I thought, oh, I don't know about that one. You're talking about a lot of force to do something like that. She's not that strong. She's strong. She's not that strong, right? So I was like, it's cool.
Still.
Right. So I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know, but okay, it was really cool though. It looked awesome. So I get why they did it, and it was fun. It was like, wow, that is pretty cool, you know. So again, kind of in the comic book theme, you'd see that kind of thing in comic books for sure. You know, that would be a classic kind of deal that they would portray, but. You know, in real life, you're like, oh, I don't know about that one. Anyway, but it's super great. And all the, the slow motion cars spinning, and it just adds so much depth to how cool it was. It was so well done on that end. And so I really, it's like, oh, this is fantastic. It really is. So as far as up to that point, that's my stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for bringing out that point about that cut in that scene, because I had noticed that several times when I watched it too. And I honestly want to say that I believe there was more to that scene. Yeah. And it was a part of the deleted scenes on the actual physical media of the film. So that's something, we might want to check out eventually, maybe, and see if there actually was more to that. It'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I definitely I caught that when they kind of cut like that, and that was kind of weird how they cut it like that.
It's the only time this movie did something like that. It was so jarring because it was so smooth everywhere else, and then it was like, wait, what happened there? That was weird. Yeah. So minor point, didn't take away from my enjoyment of it, or it wasn't like bad. It just was like, that's weird.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Since we lost Jeff again, as we can see here, I don't know what he was thinking or what, but
he's having Wi-Fi
problems. In a second there, he's having some Wi-Fi issues there.
It looks like it.
And but yeah, so yeah, we had that great car sequence. We had that great casino scene. We can't forget the awesome cameo of Stan Lee in that scene as well.
Oh yeah,
casino.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like, I'll hold that for you.
I'll just hold it over here.
Just hold it over here. He's the Zelig of the series.
I totally miss his cameos. His cameos were the best when they had them in this.
He's the cameo king, man. Come on now.
Started all the way back in The Hulk by Ang Lee. Back in 2003, that was like so fun. Lou Ferrigno in that one too, having that brief cameo, that was really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All
his,
of them are
his
great.
cameos are so
They're
perfect.
awesome. All of them.
Always so fun.
Always looking for them. Like,
I think he's in the Daredevil, the Ben Affleck Daredevil on there in that one.
Yep. Yeah, the Tony Stank one is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Off topic, but
Stank.
Tony Stank. It's like so stand. It was awesome.
Well, if I can interject while we're waiting on Jeff to join us, but a little story. Stank. What made it so funny to me? There's a company in called, you've heard of it, called Stanley Tools. Well, they have a big distribution center here, not where I live, and it's specially built, and they named the street they're on Stanley Drive. Well, in the system where I work for transportation logistics company, in the system when I'd pull it up, they had it misspelled in our system as Stanky Way. So I'd always went and said, well, we got to go up to Stanky Way again, deliver some tools or whatever, pick up some tools. But it it always just would remind me of that, and it was just even more funny.
Yeah,
and in fact,
absolutely.
it's a FedEx, he's a FedEx guy, and I work for the other company.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I don't want to say, even though I'm retired, I don't want to say it out loud. But
Yeah, just the guy who created this entire universe we love, making fun of a character that's made him millions. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty awesome. Just having a sense of humor about the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
He enjoyed it. He really loved it. He loved what he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
He put his heart and soul into it, and it shows.
Yeah.
And it shows.
His whole life was this, and obviously just made a huge contribution to our society, in my opinion.
Right. He never wrote that great novel he wanted to, but he gave us Marvel. And
I think it's better than a novel.
We got plenty. We got plenty of great novels. We've only got one Marvel.
I agree. Okay, well, we can get back to topic now, Cyber. Sorry.
Oh my goodness! And we all of us just froze again. That was the funniest thing.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, so funny. Anyways, so after that amazing sequence, which just to talk a little bit more about the when T'Challa takes the herb again to get the Black Panther powers again, and we talked a little bit about the playing field that you talked about there, Mr. Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit more about that sequence too, because I think that's a really fantastic sequence. I really enjoyed how it looks, and I thought that was interesting. That's the way they felt that, this land, this, ancient one land would look like and stuff like that. And so I just want to get everyone's kind of idea, Renee and Jeff, yourselves, a little bit on that sequence of the film, the going to the Ancestors' land. What were your guys' thoughts on that sequence? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it added to the film, having King T'Chaka come back in that spirit realm to talk a little bit to T'Challa? And did you think it was visually appealing too as well? Starting with you, Loki's mom.
I certainly did. I mean, what it was, you see it, the basic African, like as I said before, the ideal is African plane, but it's surrounded by this sort of ethereal energy, rainbowish light and everything. It's very peaceful, very, you've people that have had what they call near-death experiences, whatever their experience, whether it's they're actually going to another realm or this is something that's part of their brain chemistry at death. They've described similar things, and I've actually had loved ones, relatives that have had near-death experiences, and just really came back and said that it was the most peaceful one. And they actually, one relative actually said she met her mother. She walked with her mother and said there was so many different colors she couldn't believe what she saw. It was so beautiful, but then she came back to life, and whatever's going on, I'm not going to, say that, but I think that's what they were going for, at least in that particular sequence, and they did it real well. And I think people recognize that. People who have either experienced that themselves or have heard stories from, directly from loved ones and whatnot, that they would recognize that. And it also, I think, because the story is very similar, the story of Wakanda. And if you think back a little bit to Thor and Asgard, this is another mythical realm type deal. very idealized, very beautiful. Everything's perfect. You know, people don't suffer there anymore. But it's isolated, you know, and their blessings don't flow to those around them that much. I think it's sort of the same thing there with Wakanda. And this is the conflict that's going to come up about, well, no, Wakanda's not a paradise. You know, it's got its problems too, and it's you know, great wonderful heroes have their faults and do do bad things, and because they think they're doing good, but it winds up being bad. So I think that's sort of when the movie starts to pivot, when he comes back, T'Challa, to be the king, to actually face up to this issue with the vibranium, and we also know that vibranium has come out of that area long before now, or when the story is set, because that's what I believe the shield for Captain America is made of. Isn't it vibranium, guys?
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously Howard, way back when, Howard Stark, or maybe Howard Stark's father, had some contact. So he was really on the bad side. I mean, we're seeing the bad side of trying to take advantage of for what Killmonger wants, what he's going to come for. You know, he sees the power and the glory of what Wakanda could be, and him, the king, and all the blessings flowing out to hit his people, but screw all the other people. You're going to be under our rule and our command. So yeah, I think I think that part, that how they did this movie was real well. I think they handled the political issue real well, the spiritual issue real well. And I've probably gone on a little too more philosophical than what I should right now. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Cyber.
All right, thank you. All right, so Jack, two questions for you. So we were just talking about the scene where T'Challa takes the herb again after becoming king, and he goes to the ancestral plane and sees his father. So your thoughts on that, along with the other question that we were talking before you got cut off because of the technical difficulties. We were talking about the casino scene and the chase sequence. What were your thoughts on that whole section of the film?
Well, okay, I'll tackle the action scene first. Again, I mean, Kevin and Renee, Loki's mom, have did a great job already in terms of like mapping out and pointing out and putting out, you know, really some of the real impactful, you know, interesting, you know, aspects of that scene. Very well shot. Really, is that Seoul? What city is that exactly?
Oh, in South Korea.
South Korea.
South Korea, yeah. It's I
think it's the city. Busan, yeah, one of the major ports.
It looks great. It looks visually great. The lighting is great. The buildings look great. Mm-hmm. It kind of reminded me of Madripoor from Falcon and the Winter Soldier a little bit in some ways. But I guess probably I'd say that, again, taking into consideration, of course, the time factor and the fact that this was phase 3. We're going back, you know, to what, 5 plus years, you know, almost 6 years when this film came out. At that point, you know, I'd say that for then, the car chase scene, the tech, Shuri having that ability to, I guess, almost like Bluetooth, you know, like, you know, the car and whatnot, you know, with like the digital model, that was very novel. You know, I mean, honestly, I'd never seen anything like that before in anything. I'm sure probably at some point in some sci-fi film, somebody's depicted something similar at some point, you know, in history, but I haven't seen anything like that before. That concept of actually like existentially driving a car like thousands of miles away, and being able to connect to another vehicle like that digitally. It's interesting to think about, you know, how you'd be able to be capable of even doing that. Like, you know, what would be the connective source that you would even use to then deliver and run that car, like from that distance, right? I mean, it's vibranium.
Well, there's a device on top of the car. You know, there's a little device that she puts on, or he sticks on the top of the car.
Oh.
And that's what she connects to.
Okay. Is it
So
like
she's
similar?
building so using vibranium, she's used that vibranium dust or whatever it is. She's able to build a virtual of what that little disc, what that little eye is seeing. So what it's sensing. So she's able to build it that way. Yeah.
So just blow some vibranium dust on some shit and it magic.
Yeah, basically. I think
it's magic. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, you know what? It works. It's great. But
yeah.
You know.
You can do anything with vibranium.
Yeah, I know. I mean, seriously, we gotta find some in real life, man. I'm telling you, be killing it. You know, better watch out if China gets it, man. We're done. I'm telling you right now. But, you know,
well, I hope we cure cancer with it before we do anything else. That's all
if China finds it, they'll be feeding it to their military. You know, they'll be eating it. I loved it. Hey, you know, Shuri's a cool character. I mean, I don't get down on fans that overdo it or like sort of like, you know, fangirl or fanboy with Shuri sometimes, you know. I mean, I watch a lot of Cyber knows and Renee knows. Kevin, you'll learn and know. I watch a lot of trailer reactions, and I still watch a lot of Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame trailer reactions to this day. Almost every day, if not every other day, I watch them. They get me pumped up. They get me excited. They get me my adrenaline going a little bit. They get me started sometimes. I love the energy and just watching the facial expressions of them. You know, people are so stunned, you know, with them and whatnot. You know, you see a lot of people in those trailers where they're just like, Shuri, you know, whatever, you know. And I'm whatever about it. You know what I mean? I think Shuri's okay. But you know, I mean, it was a great scene, you know. Great car scene. Again, depicting T'Challa as Black Panther and his abilities with the suit and everything and whatnot, really showing what he can really do again, you know, which I'll be honest with you, I still feel like, sadly, because we lost Chadwick, we didn't get to see the full extent to some, you know, to the level where he didn't have enough time, you know, to really be able to go out and flush out everything he really could do, the extent of his real tangible power set. I think we saw snippets of it, pieces of it. But essentially, I mean, when he climbs that building, you know, and like legit runs it and everything and whatnot, I mean, I'm not sure if that's a combination of sort of like an ability to stick to it to some extent with the suit, or if that's just pure like speed, you know, and he's running on it vertically or whatever, or parallel or whatever, you know. But it's awesome. Or just like a continuation of his momentum, you know. But the way he just jumps off things, you know, again, his agility, you know, and it's like similar to Spider-Man in a way almost, you know, and his claws, you know, when he takes out that tire and just digs his claws into that friggin' you know, that rim like that, you know, was awesome. It looked great visually. And I think that they did a great job overall in all of the action scenes for the most part, except maybe, you know, the later on, you know, the physical one-on-one fight against Killmonger. I think that they did a great job with him as Black Panther in the suit, really depicting his comic book accurate abilities and powers. You know, they did a good job with that. And he looked great in the suit again. And you know, I don't think that they only somewhat showed that new power that Shuri gave him with the new suit, where he was able to rechannel energy, right? That he would take in and then like, you know, put it back out. I like that deal. That was an interesting kind of concept that they added. And again, we didn't get to see it fleshed out that much, unfortunately. But Claw was great in that. Claw was like great in the film in general. Great character, you know, secondary character to throw in there to be Killmonger's partner. I thought that Killmonger and Claw were great together. They were a great combination. They fit together for me well. And I just love Claw in general. I think he's great. I really do. I love his attitude and his demeanor and whatnot. And you know, it's great to see that actor. Geez, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head at all.
Andy Serkis.
Yes, it's great to see him in the MCU. You know, great to see him in Age of Ultron. You know, I loved him in that too.
We get to see him. We get to see him, and not him as a CGI character.
Yeah, and that honestly, and that was what was really cool about it. You know, was that it was him. You know, and he was good. You know, I liked his voice, his attitude, his demeanor. Yeah, great fight scene. Again, everything that has to do with Okoye mixed in with T'Challa is always great in this film. It really is. I think Okoye is a great secondary piece in this film. I think she's underspoken and not necessarily given the value or the maybe the compliments maybe, or in terms of how big of an effect she had in the movie and how good she was as her character. But as far as the I guess as Renee depicted the ethereal plane, I cannot remember accurately. I didn't write it down what they actually called that sort of almost place or like almost alter
it's called the ancestral plane.
Yeah, it's just ancestral plane. Yeah, I think you're right.
Ancestral plane. Yes.
Yep.
Very beautiful, magical, and very organic, very authentic, very Africa. Very interesting. I love the hue. I love the color of it. The scheme. I think it almost has like a purplish, bluish kind of tint to some extent. The sky is multicolored. And I love the fact that I don't care about the religious angle. I don't care about connecting to heaven or anything and all that kind of stuff or whatever. I love the fact that in this movie, they depict a reality where a son can talk to his father that's dead and get advice from his father that's dead while he's alive, right? And actually have a conversation with him, through a ceremony. And in real time, King T'Challa is aware and cognizant of what is going on with T'Challa currently, like what he's dealing with, what his struggles are, and he's very present, like he's very with it. He's very real time. He's not like, distant. He's not like, uninformed. He's not like, hey, what the hell's going on, man? I haven't seen you in freaking 7 weeks. I'm dead, whatever. You know what I mean? What's going on?
And where did we see that before? And where did we see that scene set up like that before? Just recently.
In another film?
Yeah, in an MCU film. Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yep. That's
It's
in
all
there.
very, very, very. He's in that moment where Thor's sort of out of it, and he has this. He goes to this plane where he meets Odin, his father, to get advice, and so it's very similar. That's where I was going back, alluding to how there's similarities between Wakanda and Asgard.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I do believe that in Ragnarok, what you're seeing depicted essentially is a connection, a family connection between Odin and Thor. That's familial. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily having to do with Valhalla or Asgard lore,
right? Or special, but it is that special place where he leaves the same setting where he turns into his gold dust and goes off to Valhalla. That's where he stored that same place.
Well, I love the ceremonial and the old fashioned aspects of the fact that they have royalty in Wakanda. They have a king. They have a system, right? And in their whole deal, their dead king is still present. He's in another realm that can still be spoken to. And I mean, it's just a really great addition to the film. It's a great thing to imagine and a great concept to look at. And even, I guess, for certain people, I don't feel this way, but for certain people, I guess if they need to in their personal life, if seeing that in some way makes them feel better about death, or about losing a loved one or something like that or whatever in some way, if that does something for them and connects on a level with them where they're able to feel more positive or more optimistic about death, and things like that and loss, then that's great. You know, it's a very, very great depiction, very touching. And I just think that overall, it emphasizes the relationship between the father and the son and how important and intrinsic that role is in terms of guidance and teaching, legitimate advice that passes on between a father and a son that only can happen between a father and a son. I think that they did a great job fleshing that out. Cyber, are you
Looks like you're muted, Cyber. Although if you don't mind, I want to jump in on the character thing if that's okay. Because this came up. Oh, you good?
No, I'm saying 1 minute. I'm saying 1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute. Oh boy. Okay, all right. I'll keep it quick. I just want to speak to Claw and Killmonger. Both of them are shown as kind of psychotic, but Claw is reckless and kind of sociopath. Killmonger is just conniving and calculated, but they're both deadly, right? I think they did actors certainly played into that, and so that is I thought that was a testament to their acting skills and the writing too. It allowed them to play that out. Just Claw, just being irreverent about everything, but yet has a plan and he's going for making money.
He's a
Killmonger, you don't know exactly what his plan is. You just think he's in on it. And we'll get to that later, but it's very well done on the character side. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you. So Jeffrey, do you have the other Black Panther trailer ready?
I do.
All right. So to get us back into it, we're going to show the other trailer, people.
I've also got a trailer where I went to my own ethereal plane, right? But instead of like seeing a dead relative, I actually...
Nobody cares, Jeffrey.
I did a threesome with ghosts,
Nobody cares, Jeffrey. We just want to see the trailer.
It was
well, no. I'll let it go. Let's see the trailer.
It was a poltergeist orgy.
I have seen gods fly. I've seen men build weapons that I couldn't even imagine. I've seen aliens drop from the sky.
Yeah.
But I have never seen anything like this. How much more are you hiding?
Hold up. Let's go.
We are home. My son, it is your time.
Show me my respect and bow down.
You get to decide what kind of king you are going to be. Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
The revolution will not be televised. Show me my respect and bow down. We own ya. We own ya. We only getting started now. Cause we own ya. Everybody think they know me now. Cause we own ya. You and I'm a homie. Cause we own ya.
I waited my entire life for this. Let's have some fun.
The revolution will be live.
I can't go back to it again and say, oh my God, that music, that soundtrack is the best Marvel soundtrack, I feel, besides Ragnarok, that they put out. This
Cyber, can we talk about the trailer for a minute?
No.
Please?
You're not allowed to talk about it. You talk
Please, Daddy.
25 minutes, sir.
Please, Daddy.
No, naughty boy. You do not know. Okay, what would you like to talk about?
Well, that song in the trailer is awesome. Great song. Like, seriously. I mean, I remember seeing it for the back then, and I was like, this is great. It was really a standout track for a Marvel trailer, which I think sort of kind of like was a premise to set up some of the really solid hip hop and like sort of like rap kind of tracks we've gotten in like Shang-Chi trailers, whatnot. That was a great track. And you're right, the soundtrack was banging. Great soundtrack. Killer soundtrack. Just like a lot of Marvel films. Well done trailer as always. And man, Okoye doing the Wakanda Forever was freaking awesome. Sounded great.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, this is I don't know if this was the second trailer. I think this was the second trailer, I think.
Second trailer.
Out. And it's just a really good, solid trailer. I mean, it shows you all the key, like, great kind of like action sequences. I mean, it pretty much showed a good portion of the car chase sequence there. I mean, showed, T'Challa jumping off of that car as Claw destroys it with his arm. Shows him take out the tire on Claw's car. I mean, then you got that music going, and then shows, you kind of got those Killmonger scenes a little bit. You got pretty much all the action sequences throughout the whole entire film. And it really excited you, and it really got you going and wanted to see this film. And I mean, yeah, totally. I totally agree. This is a fantastic trailer. I don't know what everyone else thought. I mean, Loki's mom, what about you? What did you think about the trailer?
Well, I mean, I think this is the first time I've seen it. So, I've seen scenes that I'm already familiar with. Yeah, I mean, it brings out all, like you say, the soundtrack, the score, that's, a huge part of it and a huge part of this movie. Very, like you say, urban. And yet it also references, more folk African type themes and things like that. Yeah, it brings out all the characters. I think, like I said, we've already talked about Andy Serkis and Mike. Is it Michael B. Jordan? Is that the guy who plays Killmonger?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's this really the second half of the movies. He is a lot of ways or the last third of the movie at least, because we start to get a little bit more into his story. What happened to him. Here he was, this kid abandoned and left on the streets of Oakland, and he turned into a criminal. Okay, what do you expect? And then, he becomes this mercenary and this soldier. Well, he's a soldier he works for the government. He's killing for the government. And then he becomes a soldier of fortune and becomes, works for himself and things like that. And so, he's just following the path that essentially his uncle, the king, set him on when he abandoned him as a child on the streets of Oakland, California. If it had been 1992, it probably wouldn't have been as bad. But if it had been 1972, as it sort of alludes to, it would have been bad. But let's just say he came up on the streets. So yeah, it really sets it up, I think, for it's a complex story. I think I've touched on that already, and I think that's what we're all recognizing, how well it tells this story on multi levels and yet keeps it going, keeps it connected. It doesn't get to the point where, what was that character? And you forget what the character was in the first movie that had to do with it. No, you don't do that. You pretty much, where all the characters are and where you're at all points of the film. So, yeah. Yeah, and like I say, and this trailer does reflect that. So,
thank you. Mr. Fantastic, any thoughts on the trailer, sir?
Yeah, so I really hate trailers that you watch and you go, I've just seen the whole movie, I'm not going to watch that. Like, you just laid it out. Now I know what's going to happen, and there's no point. I'm not going to waste 2 hours now. This, not only did it show all those elements, but it made you more like, well, wait, how did that all fit together? It was more intriguing, even though they exposed quite a bit of what really happens in the movie. It was done in a way that it didn't tell the whole story where you weren't wanting to go see it now. And because of the soundtrack, the way the music works, it's very compelling. Just the whole thing is like, yeah, that looks very, very cool. And so that's what I like about the artfulness of trailers. People that are good at that do it without giving away too much, but yet you want to see it. And so hats off to the production team on that one, because it was extremely well done.
100% agree. 100% agree. All right. So moving on. So after Claw is captured, they go back to like a holding place, and basically Everett and him have a conversation, and basically Claw basically tells him that Wakanda has all these imports that they're you can get there and all these weapons and stuff like that. And I want to say the best part about that scene is when Claw's there stuck in the chair and he starts singing, "Debbie, don't hurt me no more." It was absolutely freaking hilarious. Andy Serkis was perfect at that. That was so funny.
Yeah.
And he's like singing that, and you're kind of like just cracking up because he's so good at it. And basically, explains that, and he goes back out and starts talking to T'Challa and Okio again. And that's when all of a sudden there's a giant break-in, and Killmonger and his other cronies are there, and basically to get him out of there, and they basically have a little shootout. Freeman. Everett jumps and tries to save Nikita. As he's doing that, he gets shot in the back, and Claw escapes along with Killmonger. Basically, they go back to show Everett, and he's damaged pretty good, and they're like, the only way we can save him is to get him to Wakanda so we can use our technology. And so they're like, okay. So then basically they travel back to Wakanda after Claw has gotten away, and basically there they fix up Everett, and we kind of go back, and they're there, and Daniel Kaluuya, who is also a part of one of the tribes there. We got to kind of meet him a little earlier prior to going to Busan. And he's kind of with T'Challa, but not really with T'Challa. And at this sequence, he's like kind of gets disappointed because they haven't brought Claw back. And basically, your father had 30 years, and it's still the same. And I'm kind of pissed that you guys didn't capture him. He's like, well, he escaped. We're sorry, And basically, that's kind of where they leave it at. So after that, they get they're back in Wakanda, and basically Everett is being fixed by Shuri. T'Challa confronts Shuri about N'Jobu, and we have kind of that little conversation there, where basically he explains that he was there when his father killed his own brother. And that, it's because of him, because he saved him. That's why his brother had to kill his own brother. And they have that kind of heartfelt conversation there. And that's when we cut back, and basically Killmonger goes basically like kind of AWOL and kills everyone and kills Claw. And we kind of have a funny moment there. He's like, Claw's kind of talking. He's like, I knew you weren't just some city boy or whatever, or however he says it, like some regular boy or whatever. And then he shoots him, and I think that was pretty funny how they kind of left that. That was another thing I didn't get. Like, let's bring in, Andy Serkis, such a great actor, and let's kill him off in the very first Black Panther film. That was another thing I didn't get, because I'm like, why the hell would you bring in Claw and not keep him around? Because he is one of Black Panther's biggest nemesis. Like, why would you just kill it off like that? So I was a little upset by that when that first happened. When I first saw it, I was like, really? Like, this is such a great character. Why are you killing him off so quickly? So, I think that's an interesting sequence there too as well. And I think it's pretty interesting and definitely at the same time very annoying, I felt. So basically we kind of find out a little bit. They talk a little bit about Killmonger. They find out that he's a Black Ops Navy SEAL. Everett kind of tells Shuri about that while they're in the chamber, where he wakes up and he's been fixed, and basically that he's basically this master killer, and then he basically went over and started kicking butt and like taking names and stuff like that, and they kind of leave it at that. And that's when he all of a sudden pops up and saying that I'm here, I have Claw. And so they have that conversation in the courtroom, and he's like, I'm actually here for the throne because it's rightfully mine, because I am the son of N'Jobu. And so, of course, he shows his little lip thing. It's got that little lighted up number sequence or whatever it's supposed to be for the Wakandans. And makes me kind of think of what movie was it that they had something similar to that they showed? I think it was in the Mummy remakes. The character Odette Fair played of the Magi, they had a similar kind of like tattoo on their lip to show that they were a part of that thing. So that made me kind of think of that. But I thought that was kind of interesting. They had that kind of like this like tattoo thing on their lip. So basically, they start talking. They find out that he's the son of, T'Chaka's brother, and basically he says, I want rights to the throne. I want to challenge you, T'Challa. And basically, T'Challa does take him up on it. So then we go and we actually have another like ceremony like we did earlier, where they basically fight it out at the same place to see who becomes king. And they have that sequence, they fight and stuff like that. And, Killmonger, of course, is showing all his anger because he feels like, the world's against him and all this stuff and stuff like that. And, that his father was taken away from him and all this kind of stuff. And they fight. And basically, I feel he plays a little dirty. And basically, Forrest Whitaker's character, Tulsi, I think it is, he steps in. He's like, no, he's not responsible for your father's death. It was me. Take me. And he stabs Tulsi and kills him. And then after that, Black Panther, T'Challa tries to get up and start to fight him some more after he's been injured real bad. And he basically, Killmonger stops him and then throws him over the waterfall. So let's stop there. So all that craziness that just happened. Oh my God, so much information going on there. So much going on in this film. What were you guys' thoughts on that sequence of the film? And was there anything maybe you noticed, or if there was anything that you appreciated or enjoyed about it or hated about it? Just give me your thoughts on that whole situation up to the basically thinking that we think that T'Challa is dead. Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Yeah, I agree with you, Cyber, about killing off Claw, because he's such a juicy villain, and just so, and he makes no, hang on, he makes no apologies to his evil. I'm sorry, what's going on?
You were just echoing a little bit. It happens. Go ahead.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah, he makes no apologies to. I think it may be somebody else there. It's not me, but anyway.
No, it's Jeff, unfortunately.
You're gonna have to get a better Wi-Fi connection, Jeff, or get your own system.
I'm getting that.
Okay. Yeah, I wish they had not. And who knows? They drag him in a bag. Or Killmonger drags him in a bag up to the border. Who knows what they did with Claw's body? We'll see. Who knows what he may pop up. And then again, Andy Serkis, they can bring him back just as a CGI character. So we'll probably see. Hopefully, we can see him again sometime. Or maybe he could even direct one of the movies. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I think I've already talked a little bit about Killmonger and his motivations and everything, his backstory, which I think really is like the reveal that Wakanda's not what it's. And I think he says it right there. He said, it was built on a lie. It was built on a lie. Obviously, the king was dealing with at the outside, or the kings themselves, maybe not necessarily all of them, but we're dealing with the outside world, selling things, to whatever, to guys like Howard Stark. He abandons his own nephew to, it's one thing for him to have to kill his brother who went rogue or whatever in a fight, but just to leave the kid there. He could have taken him back to Wakanda and raised him as his nephew, which was what he was. That would have been his birthright. So he was denied that. So yeah, his motivations, I think we gain sympathy for Killmonger that we don't really have for Claw at all. And he doesn't care because he's just straight up evil. Jeff and I, we did a show. We did a review of Batman, the 1980s. What is it, 1986 or
89?
89. And we were talking about the different Jokers, and because there's been quite a few since then, but including the great Caesar Romero. And you were there too, Cyber. I'm sorry, the great Caesar Romero. And we talked about how Batman, he would that Joker and that particular Batman was he was just straight up evil. He didn't care. He enjoyed his evil, and that's what Claw is. And so I hate that they killed that off, and because those characters are so great in these stories.
Awesome, thank you, Mr. Fantastic.
Okay, great. So, whoops, hold on, spilling things. All right, so as far as the claw killing off thing, so here's what struck me about that whole sequence is at the beginning they look like they're partners, right? So Claw's kind of in charge, Killmonger's second-hand man. They have this plan. They're working out how to make a ton of money, and et cetera, et cetera. So as it unfolds, you realize Killmonger's not necessarily about the money. He's got a different agenda, and you can't quite tell. But then the whole thing with what I think is going on, he actually orchestrated the entire thing so that he could deliver Claw and create doubt about the king. So he had a master plan, this whole thing where he got close to Claw because he knew Claw could get in, got his confidence, double-crossed him. That was part of the plan the whole time, so that he could dump his body to Daniel and say, I did what your king can't do. So he'd have support in the kingdom. So that was planned years ahead of that, right? So he was doing all this stuff, thinking for years, his whole life, about how to actually make people have doubt about the king, because it was almost absolute, right? So brilliant, very conniving, brilliant guy, knew how to play the system, so to speak. So that whole thing of killing off Claw, agreed, shouldn't have done it that way, but that was the only way it made sense for him to get the leverage he needed to be able to do what he was doing. So I think it made sense on that end, but yeah, killing off Claw from a long-term sense probably wasn't the best move. It different way. It reminded me of Quicksilver, right? Getting killed off in the first movie. It was like, what? Come on, he's a great character. I mean, not great like everybody loves him, but just so many possibilities with him, you know? And I thought, why did they, what? That was lame, you know? And it was the same sort of reaction, not quite as much because there was so much going on. It was just, it kind of went by. And then later I went, wait a minute, that made a lot of sense. And yeah, that kind of sucks. Wait a minute. Don't do that. Anyway, so that's my take on that whole situation, is that it was from day one, that was the plan for Killmonger, right? And then let's see, the whole thing. Okay, so going back to T'Chaka not taking his nephew back doesn't, for me, that doesn't fly, because they're like, we got to take care of our own, and he just leaves his nephew. That doesn't. I don't really buy that. It just doesn't, you know. And I get, like, they had to create the conflict. They had to have some reason, and because he was around his uncle or his brother or whatever, who went rogue, he was scared that his son would follow in his footsteps, and so he's like, I'll just let's not talk about it. So I get the motivation, I understand the storyline, but it didn't seem to be a strong enough reason to me, in the sense of the Wakanda forever mentality. That doesn't make sense to me. So unfortunately, I was like, I don't really buy that anymore. But I get why, you know, you can't do it any other way at that point, right? There's no way to rectify that and make it make sense for why Killmonger was so determined to be the king. It was the only way that could work out. So I get it. You know, it was a plot thing. But in that sense, I think it was cool because I didn't realize it until it was happening, what Killmonger's plan was. So I thought that was, again, very good writing in that sense. So I appreciate it from that angle. And then the actual fight, the only thing I can really say is, again, great choreography. It just, as they were fighting, it was kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. It seemed like that's what his strategy was, because he would, you know, slice his arm, and then his, you know, his hamstring, and then this and that. So he was just weakening him, just playing with him almost, you know, just showing how superior he was. So in that sense, I think that was pretty cool. There was one point in the fight, okay, as a downside, there was one point in the fight where T'Challa had him in a headlock, and he was just lying there. He wasn't fighting it at all. It was very odd. Like, what? he would make, he'd spin out of it really quick. I don't know why that it was, it was like, okay, whatever. So, and then he, gets upper hand and he makes this big grand gesture of, and I think that's where he says, I've been waiting for this my whole life. This is the moment. I think it's in that scene. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's where he says that. And it's just this big, he has been working on this his entire life. This is his defining moment. And so he's going to win no matter what, because he's done all the things that he's done to get there. Okay. That's what I got to say.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree there. Yeah, with him when he was in that kind of headlock, like why wasn't he doing anything? That definitely, I totally see that where you're coming from there. So
yeah, that was odd.
Yeah. Jeff, are you with us, sir?
I am.
All right, sir. Your thoughts on that little sequence? I'll kind of catch you up here. So we started from when Claw was captured and has the conversation with Everett. And then he breaks out of there with Killmonger. And then it goes through the sequence where basically Killmonger kills Claw. And then we go back to Wakanda. And Wakanda, Everett gets all fixed up by Suri after saving Nikita. And he basically gives kind of like a little bit of a surmise on who Killmonger is. And then Daniel Kaluuya, aka I forget what his name is in the film, has that little conversation with T'Challa saying he didn't bring Black Claw. He's disappointed, and then basically Killmonger shows up with Ulysses' body, and basically says he wants to fight T'Challa for the throne, and then they have their battle sequence where eventually Killmonger throws T'Challa over the side of the cliff. So that's where we ended it. Your thoughts on that whole sequence, sir?
Due to inflation, one good girl is now worth 1,132.13 bitches.
I think that guy is
that just
the Black
the whole
Panther.
thing. Yeah.
That's the guy in the Black Panther suit at the end of the trailer, Wakanda Forever trailer, right there. That's it. He just forgot his drum that day. Anyways, no, I mean, it was great. I mean, hey, I think you and I have even talked personally, Cyber, about the realistic acting talents or abilities, of Michael B. Jordan, realistically, overall, in different films. He's so, as Killmonger, he was freaking great. He was, if anything, I think maybe perfect casting almost. Sarah Finn hit a home run with him completely again. Just killed it. He fit Killmonger perfectly. His general Michael B. Jordan personality, which is how he acts. He is Michael B. Jordan. That's it. That's all you get with him. That's it. That's his mode, right? So
right.
At that point, it fit Killmonger. You know what I mean? Perfectly. So at that point, when he would drop some of those really aggressive emotional lines, they were intense. They were impactful. They really were, right? They were, from a villain standpoint, they were almost, I'd say, at par, if not at times above Ultron from Age of Ultron. Just because his voice is that aggressive and powerful at times. And plus his physique too to match. He looks big and really ripped in the film.
He's a badass.
Yeah, like a badass. Yeah, like a monster, like a beast. And he's a killing machine. So I mean, they did a. I mean, I don't want to say it was perfect the way that they played him in the What If series, but he was a nice addition. First season, I liked him in there. Don't know about the whole deal with him and Tony Stark and all that. That episode and whatnot was a little but either way, great villain. I don't know how I'd rank him. I'm not really good at trying to rank MCU villains really, number by numbers very well. But I'd say that definitely, probably, at least right in the beginning of the second tier of like the overall villains we've had in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's right there, if not like right at the end of like the top tier, you know. And at that point, very effective, and I guess essentially as far as Claw being killed and whatnot, I mean, you kind of see it coming, you know, like you could kind of tell there's a switch with Killmonger where, you know, I mean, he clearly has different motivations than Claw. He's, if anything, he's sort of a purist. He really is, you know. He's not objectified at all. He's not about personal gain. You know, if anything, he wants to what? Restore Wakanda and use it as a vehicle to rectify what he sees as you know, historical wrongs against Black people, you know. And so at that point, I mean, you know, again, Claw was cool. He was a good character. I would like to have seen him survive. You know, it would have been nice if he could have made it through the film and stuck around. But I mean, it was cool overall how they gave us some different Killmonger throughout the movie. He starts off kind of like, you know, has his own kind of deal going on. He's kind of soft spoken. He's not very, you know, intense, overdoing it or whatever, not violent really. And then all of a sudden he just escalates and escalates and escalates, you know, and becomes more effective and more brutal. And at that point, I'd say that as far as the fight goes, you know, it made sense logically that he would kick Chadwick's ass, that he would kick T'Challa's ass. T'Challa's a good hand-to-hand fighter, but Killmonger is like an A++ hand-to-hand fighter. He's like above Daredevil level, I think. Probably when it comes down to it, throwing down with this. Although that'd be a great fight. Killmonger and Daredevil one-on-one would be nice.
Yep.
You know?
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
well, can I jump in a little bit on that? What you're talking about, Jeff? And I think it's and it's a common trope. I mean, he's the you made me what I am type character. You know, the product of the system. In real life, that was Charlie Manson's excuse. That's what he said he was. You know, that was his motivation to become the monster that he was. And he, you know, he's dead now, right? Hopefully, in hell. Hopefully. Anyway, aside from that, but we see it a lot. I mean, you know, here again, it kind of I keep alluding back to Thor, but Loki, you know, that's his. You know, you made me what I am. You know, I'm doing this because you know, for Killmonger, his motivation, if going back to talking about the original Black Panthers and where they touch on real life here. There was a revolutionary movement that very much that espoused, you know, this is okay. This is how the society, you've got us, you redlining and whatever, and you know, you can't come here and you can't go there. And remember, this is in the 60s. This is not later on. You know, they said, and essentially this is what you're making us to be. This is what we have to be in order to get to get some justice for our people. And that's how they saw it, right or wrong. That's how they felt about it. So I think there's sort of that, they're bringing that back into the Black Panther, because obviously I dare say that's what Stan Lee was referring to when he, you know, I mean, you know, the obvious, you know, name is there. And it's California, Oakland, California. So he is the ultimate revolutionary, and in some ways he's justified in what he has to say, but his means are terrible. You know, he wants to be the dictator. He wants to use it for not only his own ends, more so than for his own people. He just wants the power and the glory of being the king of all Africans in the diaspora. I guess that's what he wants to be. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very huge dynamic character. I think some way they kind of soft pedaled his ending. But yeah, up to that point where he throws him down. Yeah, that's, you know, that's where he really takes over. I think his character takes over the movie too. It really becomes about him.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So, So as we move on from that, after Killmonger throws T'Challa over the waterfall, that's when we cuts to him ingesting the heart-shaped herb. And, of course, he goes to an ancestral plane, but not the same ancestral plane we saw T'Challa go to. But he does go to a ancestral plane, which is his old apartment he lived in Oakland, and his dad's there, and he has a conversation with his dad. And basically, the conversation ends up with the dad basically crying, him crying, and, and all that kind of stuff happening. And basically he wakes back up and he's like in like fight mode a little bit. They're like, "Oh, you're back, you're fine." And then after he wakes up there a little bit, he basically tells them, incinerate the rest of them, destroy the rest of these plants. Well, before they do that, thankfully Nikita ends up grabbing one before everything else is incinerated. So thank you, Nikita. So after that happens, when Killmonger throws T'Challa over the waterfall, that's, of course, Ramonda and Shuri are both like over there crying. They start to flee. And so then we see Ramonda and Shuri leaving and fleeing from there. And that's when Nikita goes and is like trying to grab some stuff before they actually get out of there so that, they don't get killed. And that's when basically Nikita kind of bumps into Okoye and they hug and they kind of have a little conversation. She's like, I'm loyal to the throne. And basically it says that she's not coming with them. And she's kind of like, what the hell? Like, T'Challa's your king, not that crazy dude. And so like, she's like, I'm loyal to that throne, no matter who's in the throne. And she's like, okay. And so she leaves. And that's when she beats back up Ramonda and Shuri. And after she gets back there, she has brought Everett with her because, don't want to let him get left behind and get killed. And so they both basically all go and leave together. And that's when they go see M'Baku. And when they go see M'Baku in his kingdom, they basically are there to ask him for help to overthrow Killmonger, get him off the throne. And while they're there and they're talking, basically M'Baku basically says, hey, we found T'Challa's body. And that he's still alive, but he's in a coma, and they have him in like an ice pack, basically. And before they got to that, they were going to offer the one heart shaped herb that they got to M'Baku so that he could take over to just take out Killmonger. But instead, they took the herb and they crush it up, and then they give it to T'Challa while he's in that coma. And after he ingests it, he basically goes back to the ancestral plane, where he, of course, comes across his ancestors and his father. And basically, he has this heartfelt conversation with his father saying, why did you guys do this? Why did you kill your brother? Why did you not give the technology to the rest of the world and let them suffer and all this stuff? And they say, basically say, you did everything wrong. And, I'm not going to be like that anymore. And I'm going to change it. And I'm going to get back and I'm going to change this and make the world a better place, basically. And so he basically pops out of it back, and he's back, and his wounds have healed because he ingested the heart-shaped herb, and he's all set and basically pops back out. And so after that all happens, after that, they decide they're going to go back to, stop Killmonger from basically giving all the weapons to the rest of the world, because, they can help them without doing that and giving them all the vibranium weapons like that. We can help them in different ways. And so once they get back, they all start to kind of plan an overtaking of Killmonger. And at this point, Daniel Kaluuya's character has now sided with Killmonger and is helping him out with his people. So they get back there. Shuri gets back to her area and stuff like that with Everett, and tells, basically shows Everett, okay, you're going to use this and you're going to pilot one of the ships to stop the other ships from going in, traveling, and giving the weapons to other people. And of course, then Shuri gets all geared up and gives Nikita an outfit to be all geared up to look like one of the Dora Magi. And while they're doing that, honestly, I don't know where Ramonda was after that section. really wasn't a part of that whole sequence. So I was kind of going to myself like, wonder where Angela Bassett is in this whole situation. Like, what's she doing? You know, they're all doing something, but I haven't seen her do anything. So they all basically Suri and Nikita end up going out, and they have their weapon stuff, and Killmonger's out there, and he's fighting with the Dora Magi, and basically they go into this crazy battle, and there's a battle going off in the thing because T'Challa pops back up, and he's like, "Look, I am not dead. You have not won. I have not abdicated the throne." And basically, giant, like, you know, crazy sequence of fighting happens. We see T'Challa use the powers and stuff like that, which is really cool. We have this giant, like, fight sequence between everyone fighting each other. At one point, T'Challa goes after Killmonger when he sees that he's trying to kill Suri. He has fights with some of the rhinos. He's got to stop the rhinos from attacking people and stuff like that. And at one point, all the Dora Magi get stuck around all the people with the force fields. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Baku and his crew end up showing up and help stop them and bringing the Dora Magi. And basically, that sequence kind of halts for a second. And that's when we go back to T'Challa and Killmonger having their ultimate battle, basically. So after Edward takes out all the ships, of course, he takes them all out, and he goes to join the rest of the people. But as we go back, basically T'Challa and Killmonger end up down where all the vibranium is, and where the speeding trains are that transport the vibranium all over the place, and those, like, things that Suri has created that keeps the vibranium from being active for a certain amount of time so that it can travel that fast. So they basically have in this fight sequence right down in that area, and when they get into the beam things, they find out that it basically starts to make their suits kind of materialize a little bit, and they can see each other's faces and stuff like that. It makes them vulnerable from, weapons and stuff like that. So as they're fighting, they're doing that. They're having a conversation as they're doing it too as well. They're fighting, they're doing that. And at one point, finally, T'Challa gets the upper hand and stabs him when the things are going. So then they walk out to the plane after he's stabbed. They have a little bit more of a conversation, basically, saying, let's forget what happened, and let's go back to this and that. And, basically Killmonger's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to jail. I'd rather be here, see my sunset, and die. And then he basically takes the rest of the thing that's stuck in him and shoves it into him to kill himself. And he dies right there. So, before we move on past that, let's talk about that whole fight sequence. So, what was everyone's thoughts on this fight sequence? Was there anything particular that you really liked about it? Was there anything you noticed maybe somebody else didn't notice? And overall, do you think that it was a good sequence and kept the choreography going? And just your thoughts on that whole entire sequence. Starting with you, Loki's mom.
Oh yeah, I think the whole the action throughout the whole movie I thought was well done. I mean, it flowed. They had the pauses when they needed to slow the action down. They were able to do that and then pick it, crescendo it back up. As you do that, as they call it, the roller coaster. Dare I allude back to that? But anyway, yeah. One thing I did like, I thought how they sort of keep bringing Ross into Everett Ross, the CIA man. And I think, I don't know that much about the Black Panther comics, but I believe he's actually a very important character in the comics, and is sort of his liaison between the U.S. government and T'Challa and Wakanda, and he has a very warm relationship with T'Challa and also with Suri. So I don't know how they're going to maybe factor. I know he's going to be Martin Freeman, the wonderful Martin Freeman's going to be in the next movie. He sort of has that elfish look to him that made him work so well in the Lord of the Rings movies. But so how he'll factor into the next movie, I think is going to be interesting. What his relationship will be, considering that T'Challa is going to have to be replaced. I mean, that's just an unfortunate fact. How that's going to play out. So yeah, I'm glad that they're bringing Martin Freeman more into the fold. Maybe he can take the place of we lost Thunderbolt Ross. Maybe he can be the Thunderbolt Junior Ross or something going forward. But who knows? But anyway, yeah, like you say, it was just well done. And then of course the closing sequence where he's finally, well, I'd rather die on my feet than die a slave, or whatever type speech he gives there, and looks off. It's always beautiful, and T'Challa extends his sympathy towards his cousin, because this his blood relation here, because of what was done to him. At least the initial damage was not his fault. So he has to. Hopefully, there's some hope that he can go to the astral plane with his ancestors and make amends, and who knows, Michael B. Jordan may be back someday as Killmonger, a reformed Killmonger.
All right, awesome, thank you. Mr. Fantastic, same question, sir.
Okay, then. Let me see. So without, I don't want to repeat a lot other than, so thanks, Loki's Bomb, great. I think in this sequence you start to see Killmonger become even. I would call it more power hungry, because he talks about burning everything down.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be on top. We're going to be the ones in charge now. So it's sort of, from a philosophical standpoint, it's right. No, he wants to make things right, but he's doing it in the same way. So it's just, okay, now we're going to have a different dictator. That's not necessarily good. So in a subtle way, that ending was showing the difference between what I would label as evil, right? Just being a dictator and want to run the world your way. That's kind of evil, right? That's not how we really should be working with each other. And so that idea, he couldn't get past that. He was stuck in that way of thinking to the bitter end. And even though T'Challa at that point is wrestling with the damage that was done by his father and the decisions, all of kind of isolating themselves. And he's starting to question it also, but offers a better way. So he's staying true to what Wakanda stands for, even there also. So I think what's cool in that, even to the end, they both were still on their tracks, and it did, it's good versus evil, so we like to see good win. So okay, cool, but done not gratuitously, right? It was character based, which I thought was great. That it was kind of true to the character, I guess is what I'm saying, and so that made sense, and also set up the ending and that kind of thing too. But so I thought that was. It made sense with the arc of the plot, right? With what you said, I think, Cyber, earlier, or somebody, maybe Jeff, said, Killmonger seems like just a villain. He's just there, and then it escalates. He keeps getting grander and grander with his vision of how he's going to fix the world, and it turns into, well, I'm going to be king, of everything. And so, arming people, all the black people, in the world, so black people can then rule everything. Which again, it's the sentiment from the Black Panthers of the 70s, like Loki's Bomb is bringing up, and so that that theme keeps coming up, obviously. But it also, I think, highlights that that's not really the answer that we need. It just is it's just a different version of the same problem. Mm-hmm. And so the Wakanda way is supposed to be a higher way, a better way, where we take care of each other, we work together. They don't flesh that out a lot in the movie, but that's, you get the sense that that's what it is. And so, just on the last note, I think that also points to the ancestral planes of the two, from Killmonger to T'Challa, right? Those two characters have very different experiences in that ancestral plane, where T'Challa's is very ethereal and, upwardly looking, as opposed to very worldly looking when Killmonger goes there. He's in his apartment. He's stuck in that spot. He can't get past there. And so I thought that was, a subtle way to explain, their mindsets also, and keep true to the character. So I'll leave it at that. There's plenty more to say, but the fighting scene's great. I enjoyed all the fight stuff, and I think the pacing of it was good. It down and up. It was a roller coaster, and that's fun at the end of a movie, but not silly. So it was like, okay, cool. I mean, we can pick apart small things, but generally it was really great.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Jeff, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I mean, what about this breaking news about Chloe Zhao coming back to, take the helm with Eternals 2, man? I'm telling you, these private meetings with Kevin Feige and Miss Cleo, have been really important and very pivotal. So, it's good to know that Miss Cleo is an advisor now to Marvel Studios at this point. So, just to be clear, it's a heavy rumor. And we love Chloe here. I hope that she gets her 3rd Oscar nomination for Eternals 2. Either way,
I apologize, Mr. Fantastic, on his behalf.
Unfortunately, Angelina Jolie has already demanded that they're going to have to pay her $47 million to come back and play her character again. But no, great ending fight. I mean, hey, Mr. Fantastic, Kevin, and Renee already kind of got into, and Unit Cyber broke down the actual physical fight, how it culminated and whatnot. I felt like, for me, there was a really, moving aspect of the ending where there was redemption almost for Killmonger, right? And it was unexpected to some degree. It wasn't something that that you saw coming, like that was natural, right? To just there you go, oh, okay. And I think that it was nice to see him humanized, to some extent, finally, kind of like Odin, right, Renee?
Oh yeah. I mean, the illusion, it keeps going back to that. Loki has the same problem as Killmonger. He's just revenge driven, and revenge is a fool's errand. It's always going to result in disaster because it's irrational, and so he's coming from it from that. And he's re-rationalizes it. He rationalizes the situation, but it's built on an irration, if what can I say? Like you say, and even with like you say with King T'Chaka and finding out the truth about just like it was a lie. Asgard was built on a lie. The beauty of it. So not necessarily Wakanda's not necessarily that bad as how it was with Odin, because he was apparently a very vicious, horrible dictator at one time. Something happened and reformed him. But anyway, then he made his people forget that history. Likewise, I mean, a lot of the history was taken from the Wakandan people and stolen from them, and Killmonger's birthright was stolen from him, and all that. So there was a lot of fault to be had for the Wakandans for what they did to drive this situation to where it is. And so it's left to T'Challa to at the end of the movie and this is where we get into the end credit scene where he has to go to the United Nations and and announce who we are, and we're going to try to help the world. Whatever. I think that was kind of tacked on. I don't know if that was. I didn't really care too much for that whole scene, but anyway, it was done. But yeah. So yeah. I mean, like you said, Jeff, is and as I've been saying, there's a lot of allusions back to Thor and back to that type of mythical type kingdom that's built on this fantastical technology.
Sure, and just basically, I love the shared moment between T'Challa and Killmonger. I thought it was a real connection, like almost like a brotherhood, and it really ties into the Marvel Studios celebrates the movies with Stan Lee, trailer / promo they put out and whatnot, where they referred to them, and you heard Stan say, "That man next to you is your brother," great, see that they put that in there. It's really powerful. Very well done. Lined right up with Stan's words. But I really felt like, hey, for Michael B. Jordan, that was as much range acting wise as I think he's even capable of. I don't know if like he sorted some fucking like vibranium real quick or something before he did that. I don't know, but
well, you don't need much range.
Yeah, I mean,
you're fine looking man.
I mean, as far as I guess my last words go, I feel like it was interesting. They didn't get too deep into it, but it was interesting seeing the evolution of T'Challa throughout the film as king. And you know, I feel like, you know, he had a lot of potential as a king. He really did. He was a young king, and learning on the fly, right, to some extent, you know, off the lessons he'd taken from his dad. And at that point, you know, I feel like he had a lot of potential, a lot of goodness in him, like his dad said, you know, a really, you know, it's real goodness in him. And at that point, I feel like, you know, it's unfortunate again that, you know, we'll see where things go with Wakanda Forever, but I mean, you know, untapped potential with the character, you know, where it could have went, him as the king, as a Black Panther, you know, it's okay. It is what it is. Things happen, you know, God bless Chadwick Boseman, you know, lion of a man, and a hero as far as I'm concerned. He's one of my heroes, you know, somebody I look up to, and like I look to for strength personally when I need it, you know, and along with crack, you know, and Jesus and Chloe's out. But you know, either way, great, you know, great role. Chadwick was great.
The Holy Trinity.
Yeah, no, great.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, honestly, they shouldn't have given Black Panther a nomination for an Oscar for Best Picture. They should have nominated Chadwick Boseman for Best Actor for the damn film. If anything, that would have been, to me, more logical, or like made more sense, you know, because he was that good. And I feel like at times we almost overplay how well he was as Black Panther, and almost like don't mention or put too much emphasis on the fact that overall he was a wonderful actor, very talented. You know, he could play a lot of different characters. He could do a lot of different roles. You know, and yeah, great T'Challa, great Black Panther, great ending, great overall film. And I feel like, hey, do I think it should have been nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture? No. But do I think it was definitely an impactful cultural event of a film that really impacted and influenced the MCU overall? It was a big piece of it, building up to the ending of Infinity Saga. Yes, it was a great piece, fitting, necessary, and a great building block. You know, so hey, Wakanda Forever, baby. We'll see what happens.
All right, thank you. All right, so that was basically the end of the movie. The end of the movie basically ends up happening is, like Renee was saying, it goes to T'Challa being at the UN, basically, and basically saying that they're going to start giving help to those in need of their technology. And after they have that little speech there and let them know that, it blanks out, and then it goes to Oakland again, where they're back at the old building where Killmonger lived with his dad. And basically, they're turning that place into basically like a refugee place, a halfway house, or a place to help people in need. And basically, he is left, you know, Surrey and Keen in charge of doing that. And that's basically one of the kids sees the spaceship and walks over to you know, T'Challa and says, "Is that your ship?" And Chadwick Boseman just kind of smiles and it blanks out. And so then as the credits roll, we come to our first post-credit scene. And so as they do that, basically we come to that first post-credit scene, which is basically another what was it? I'm totally blanking out of it this second all of a sudden for some odd reason.
Well, the other one was Bucky coming out of the hut.
Was it a clip of was it a clip of the Kevin Feige Miss Cleo meeting?
No, that hadn't happened yet, Jeff.
No,
not quite.
Chloe hadn't even won her Oscar yet.
Yeah, was the Bucky one the second one?
Yeah, I think Bucky was the
The
second.
Bucky one is the second one.
Yeah, I'm blanking because that's the one that I actually wanted to make a comment about. But the first one, I'm blanking also. I don't remember what
No,
it
I
is.
think that's the scene where it's the Wakanda. It's kind of a long scene where it's the Wakanda. He's at the United Nations, and then
Yeah, that is that scene. Okay.
yeah.
Is that the post credit one then?
That's the very first. Yeah, that's the post credit one.
All right,
which you
that's
already
fair.
mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool, fair enough.
So she already mentioned that, and that's basically what that is. And then it rolls through more credits, and then that's when we get to the Bucky Barnes scene, where we get to see amazing Bucky Barnes again. After we knew at the end of course, Civil War, he was frozen in Wakanda, and so now we see that he's basically been deprogrammed, that he's doing well, and he was being called White Wolf at that point. So to finish off Black Panther, let's talk a little bit about this last post-credit scene, the Bucky scene. I'll start with you, Mr. Fantastic. What would you like to say about it, sir?
There was a line that Shuri had early on in the movie when you first see her, or no, when Everett comes, when they bring Everett in, and she goes, "Oh, another white guy to fix up." And I didn't connect it when I first saw it. I was like, "What is she talking about?" You know, I missed it, and I should have. I didn't. And then when that happened, I was like, "Oh, well, that was silly of me. I should have remembered that." You know, so it was, you know, little subtle thing like that was nice. It was, you know, like, okay, cool. They weren't obvious about it, and so again, I think it added a lot of respect I have for the writing level of the movie. Because it was subtle, it didn't interrupt anything. You didn't wonder about it. You're just like, oh, that was, you know, like what? Okay, whatever. You just move on, and then at the very, like, way past the end, you go, oh, that's right. So that part I thought was clever in that sense. I enjoy things like that. You know, that's fun when people are good at that. And you know, then they set up the next movie. You know, it set things up, and okay, he's back and going to be part of the MCU as, you know, as Winter Soldier, but not the evil guy. So, I mean, just real simple. I'm not going to go heavy into it. So that's my main thing about it.
Thank you. Do you have any thoughts on that Loki's mom, that post credit scene with Bucky?
Yeah, it was a nice little reminder that, you know, Bucky's still in the world, and, you know, he's recovering and in Wakanda. And at the time, I don't think we realized it, but then it serves as a nice little setup for the Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier series too, where he's still working through his past, trying to figure out how he's going to make amends. You know, I don't know why Bucky would feel like he has to do what he does, but because he was under duress, he was not himself. That was a chemical that had been forced into him. So he was not even responsible for any of the killings that he did. But even so, he's the type of person that he felt like he needed to make amends to feel better about himself or whatever. So we see a little taste of that when he comes out of the hut, and he's wrapped up in, you know, blankets, or, you know, like he's been meditating or whatever, and just trying to get his head back together. And so yeah, it was a nice little scene, and he's a great character too. So
agreed. Really, I love that. I love Bucky Barnes. I think he's a great character. I love the evolution that they have brought him through since his first appearance in Captain America: First Avenger. And I enjoyed his process from going from that, you know, crazy brainwashed individual in Captain America: Winter Soldier to this evolution of White Wolf that we got this, or basically the Bucky that we got to see in Falcon the Winter Soldier series. And it's been a fun evolution for him. And up to this point, you know, we go into Infinity War with him, and he's got the now metal arm, and he rocks. He's so awesome. And we get to see this, you know, basically the Bucky before the brainwashing, you know, when he went to, you know, war in World War II. And it's fun to see that evolution, and that was really cool. Jeff, any thoughts on that post-credit scene, sir?
DD mega doo-doo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right there, you got it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't put it any better than that. You know, I mean, and Wakanda, they actually refer to me as the white gyno, right? You know, I was the first gyno allowed the Wakanda, you know, and I brought my talents, you know, to Wakanda, and you know, because unfortunately, the one thing that vibranium will not help is gynecology. You know, you can't just throw it in there, and you know, it doesn't work. So, unfortunately, you know, no, you know, hey, I love Bucky. I mean, hey, what can I say? The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is an awesome series. You know, without that, you know, end credits or whatever scene, without Infinity War, without the little glimpse of him in Endgame at the end, you don't get the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, right? So, I think if anything, hey, I'm like super optimistic and like looking forward to seeing what the next direction is for him, for Sebastian Stan. You know, where does he go in the MCU? You know, he's got to be an integral piece. I refuse to believe that they're not gonna. They haven't signed him to a contract already, or they're not going to. You know, I would want to believe that they've already nailed him down for Captain America 4. You'd think. I feel like at this point, it would be weird, almost illogical for them to separate him from Sam completely. You know, they're almost like mirror images of each other. So, no, great end credit scene, very impactful again for that time, for the flow of the MCU as we were going through the phases. It was a great timing, you know, moment with it. Great to bring the character back. Great to see an evolution with him. Great to see him, you know, evolve, and you know, great to see again the connectivity of him being in Wakanda, Shuri helping him, the Dora Milaje helping him. You know, I forget. Doesn't he end up having some kind of relationship or friendship with what's her name? The one Dora Milaje. Is it so is it E? I can't remember her damn name. She was in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, they know each other. That's right. Yeah. I don't know what kind of the relationship was, but yeah, there is that moment when they're talking like they know each other really well. Absolutely, yeah. I remember that now.
Yeah. Wasn't there like a flashback too where it showed him during some of his like programming too?
I think you're right. Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch it, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, no, it was a great setup, a great premise, great connection to have him there, you know, and it was awesome, you know, to have that go into Infinity War and have him be a part of that, be present in Wakanda along with Steve and Black Widow and everything and whatnot. He was a great part of that team, that squad that was there for the Battle of Wakanda. You know, great part. You know, and hey, he never runs out of ammunition, man. He's only got one clip in his gun, but he shoots the entire battle for like 35 minutes straight. Right. You know, he's not going. So hey, that's awesome.
Very true. Awesome. All right, thank you, folks. That is the end of this Black Panther review. Want to thank everyone that tuned in and watched. We appreciate you guys. Of course, you know, we have this amazing panel tonight. Of course, we have Loki's mom from, of course, the amazing Podcast of Champions, or SakarFreeforms.net, where you can go and talk about everything you like, from Resident Evil to Star Wars to anything you like. They talk about all that good stuff on there. She's a frequent guest on here on the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and she's also over there. Definitely check her over there when she does her She-Hulk reviews as well with the Podcast of Champions. She's a great guest, and we always enjoy having her on. Of course, our new guest, Mr. Fantastic. Is there anything you have to plug, sir?
Well, lately what I've been doing is playthroughs of Marvel Legendary, the card building game. And so I'm going through all of the expansions in solo play and just walking through and showing people all the masterminds and all the villains and the schemes, so everybody can see what they are and if they want to buy the expansion or not. So I've been putting those up, and probably about halfway through all the expansions at this point. So there's a lot. It's a great game. It's very cool. Love the artwork in it, and the creativity of the basic format and how they change little things that make it interesting every single time. It's great. And then this isn't necessarily something I have like a public thing, but I also am big in the Contest of Champions phone game. And so I've actually built alliances there as a family of alliances. And so I've got posts. All my stuff is on Rumble. So if you search in Rumble, I like Rumble a lot because of the free speech issue going on. Not to get too political or anything, but I'm a very concerned about our speech abilities. And at this point in time, Rumble seems to be very, they seem quite very committed to people can do what they want. And we don't have to be political. I think free speech is non-political. Like, we should have the ability to say what we want and do what we want here in America. So anyway, so all my stuff's on Rumble. If you search Old School Marvel Fan, you'll find me. But the channel is, again, Legendary. If you look up Legendary card building game. And then the Contest of Champions thing is more of like for the alliances. But I do that a lot too, because that's a ton of fun. It's a great game and very Marvel. Very, very much Marvel, and it's fun.
Awesome.
What's the Rumble channel, Kevin?
If you look up Old School Marvel Fan, it should pull up my deal there. And I have those two playlists. There's one for the Legendary, and then there's one for the Contest of Champions. Mostly in-house alliance stuff, but you can learn about the game, and there's things I put up there you can check out. So,
awesome. Thank you. It was great having you on. Hopefully, we'll have you on again. You contributed so much, and we really appreciate having you on, and you were fantastic, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, being fantastic is my thing. No, it was great being here. And yeah, actually, the whole Mr. Fantastic thing, it's not that he's my favorite character. I like, but my catchphrase, I'll just say, it's just make it a fantastic day. And so it just is, that's my thing, is we make things great. We don't let them happen to us. If you want a great life, you make it that way. So it's on my email is make it a fantastic day. And so I'm just Mr. Fantastic because that's my deal with that. But I happen to like Fantastic Four, so it works great.
Excellent. That's awesome. That's a great mantra to have, I would say. Very good. Awesome. So, of course, as I always say, if you enjoy me here on the MCU's Bleeding Edge, definitely check out my solo content as well. My own solo content. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Rumble. You can find me on Rizzle, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can find me everywhere. I do all that kind of good stuff. I do movie reviews, solo movie reviews. I do impressions. I do all that kind of good stuff. So if you enjoy me on here, definitely check that out too. And of course, my faithful co-host, as usual, Mr. Jeff S. TrueKnowledge, of course. Do you have anything you would like to say before we let these great people go?
Just as always, a genuine thanks to Renee for being on the show with us and whatnot and everything. A genuine thanks to you, Cyber, for moderating, and a warm welcome to Kevin, Mr. Fantastic, for being on the Bleeding Edge with us for the first time. And looking forward to his next appearance with us and whatnot. It was great recording with you, and I had a good time. Great contributors. You did a great job. You had some great takes and whatnot throughout the review and everything, and you made it more fun. And in general, all I can really say is just that, hey, Wakanda forever, baby. Chadwick Boseman, God bless you, man. Good ass man, lion of a man. And as far as Chloe Zhao goes, there you go. Got Chloe Zhao, great recent work there. I mean, she's killing it, man.
Killing it.
Yeah, very talented. Obviously, saw she handled that rescue right there. Very skilled. So, hey, besides that, Cyber, let's get the hell out of here, man.
All right. So,
let's dip.
Everyone, thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Bye. Good night.
It's going down.